Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown in old rivalry, a grudge match as the mighty Lizardmen face off against Mitch's Hagen F, and that is going to be the Dark Elves. We're both playing a little bit of sub-faction, but both of us are bringing mundane lords, so no special extra characters for you today, but it is a good fun game, so let's hop in here and have a nice little fight. We have gone incredibly wide in our main battle line. We have skink cohorts guarding the flanks and a bucket ton of Saurus warriors with shields in the central formation. Saurus warriors with shields are some of the best and most cost-effective medium infantry in the game. These guys can really pack a punch, and their main power really comes in when you can buff them though, because they have a rather pitiful 29 melee attack, but pretty big weapon strength that can counteract that when they do indeed get to hit their targets. In the back we have 2 units of the Cold One Spear Riders, one on either flank, looking to protect our sides, and we have the Umbral Tide Regiment Renowned Salamander Hunting Pack, some flaming doggos that I have once again fallen in love with recently, and been bringing them quite a bit. They have Stalk, Perfect Vigor, and a huge amount of burst damage potential. We do have 2 Saurus Spears as well, just waiting in reserve, figuring out which direction that they are going to head. Leading the army, we have a Skink Priest of Beast, coming with Flock of Doom and a Manticore Summon, with a cheeky little Skink Chief leading the Vanguard force here, and allying himself with the Cold One Spear Riders is going to be the Red-Crested Skink Chief on a horned one, and he's such a cool model that we basically never get to see. He's very versatile with all his different mount options. And he's going to be coming in with Warrior's Crest and Opal Amulet, leading the battle line on that flank. So pretty cool stuff from us there. Our opponent has gone much tighter and far more elite. In the main battle line, we have Black Ark Corsairs with Hambows, perhaps looking to kite me back and not really take the infantry fight too much, because he has so much cavalry. We have Cold One Dread Knights, the elite of the elite, the bad to the bones warriors, with 120 armor. It's really hard to do damage to these guys. On the other side, we have Cold One Knights mixed in. It looks like actually just the triple Cold One Knights, who are going to be supporting a Supreme Sorceress of Shadows, who is going to be riding a Cold One herself, looking particularly badass and angry today. She's going to be coming in with the Wyvern, always good because in general Lizardmen have rather good armor. Pendulum and Enfeebling Foe. Big fan of Pendulum in this matchup because it obliterates Saurus warriors. And one thing you may have noticed is we have a lot of Saurus warriors. There is going to be a War Hydra as well, leading from the front here, looking to get some big breath attacks in. And it is rather tanky with regen, so charging ahead of the army isn't the end of the world because it can absorb a lot of enemy pressure. But we're going to be sneaking our Umbral Tide a little bit closer, of course these guys are currently hidden, looking to get some big burst damage because War Hydras, they may spit fire, but they are also weak to it because they have regeneration. Cheeky little Skink Chief is going to be working here as the bait, just poking down this War Hydra, saying, hey, look at me, look over here, come attack me if you dare. And that is going to buy time for the Umbral Tide to pop up and start unleashing hell upon the War Hydra. Massive burst damage goes down as we kite it backward with the Skink Chief, just saying, come on here, come at me, look over here. And this Hydra is taking massive work here, down to half health already. Big breath attack does go in. We managed to just about kind of juke a lot of the damage, only losing a few of our hunting pack. We're going to be summoning a Manticore up in the skies. I want to try to punch that Hydra as much as possible. I want to chase it off the battlefield because there's a good chance we can break it here, and it has regen, so I certainly don't want it coming back to the main battle. Saurus Warriors are moving up to try and engage with Black Ark Corsairs. My opponent's going to let me do this. We are actually engaging with them, which is good for us. Although there are some Black Ark Corsairs starting to pressurize the Umbral Tide, we need to fall back and get to safety. Saurus Spears are now going to be trying to move towards the enemy cavalry for the most part. Looks like we're going to kind of give up on this left-hand flank with these Saurus Spears and start driving into the middle to try and help out there because we don't want the enemy pushing through onto the Umbral Tide. On the right-hand side, we do drive forward with our Cold One Spear Riders alongside the Red-Crested Skink Chief. And a lovely Pendulum comes down the line, obliterating both our Skink cohorts. And all of a sudden, we have very limited support on this right-hand flank. And our Cold Ones take the charge from the enemies, which is never a good sign, particularly with more Cold One Knights flooding in from the flanks. Luckily for us though, the War Hydra has shattered, managed to finish him off here with the Umbral Tide pressure, and we can now turn and start unleashing pressure onto the Black Ark Corsairs, trying to break them down and free up the Saurus Spears to surround the Cold One Knights, and it looks like they're doing just that on the right hand flank. If we take a nice overarching view of the battlefield, the middle is just an absolute mess. The left-hand side is certainly going in our favour, eventually dragging down these Cold One Dread Knights by surrounding them. We're also pushing around the flanks, hunting down at those Black Ark Corsairs, but the right-hand side has been dominated by my opponent. Luckily, the red-crested Skink Chief did manage to get out of danger, and I see my opponent is beelining for the Umbral Tide, so we're going to chuck our body on the line to try and hold back these Knights and summon a Manticore. My opponent is having absolutely none of it, charging in with the Cold One Knights, and my poor Umbral Tide going to be trying to meet them head on. Umbral Tide have some okay melee stats, but at the end of the day, they're very squishy and low model counts. Big fat pendulum going down the line there on our Saurus Spears and Saurus Warriors. The Skink Chief is going to be kiting back some Blackhawk Corsairs. No, don't mind the situation too much at the moment. We have a load of troops who can return to the fray as well. We've got one unit in Tactical Reserve, which is the Cold One Spear Riders. This is kind of a staple of my games recently, of me forgetting about one unit of cavalry on the flanks, but that could do us some good in the late game if it does come in nice and fresh. Red-Crested Skink Chief pops Cold-Blooded to keep him in action. I think my opponent thought he was going to be broken there and decided to retreat with his Cold One Spear Riders and Dread Knights, which is a little bit of a mistake because now our leader is still alive and healthy. Second Manticore summon is just hunting down that Supreme Sorceress, trying to rip and tear her off her Cold One. She's doing a good job juking though for the most part. It looks like she might be able to survive now that the Manticore has indeed rampaged. A big fat Flock of Doom comes down, catching a ton of my opponent. But balance power is actually in our favour, which is, I don't know, the battle's looking pretty bleak, I think. We do have Saurus Spears here and Saurus Warriors. We're going to be carving up a lot of the Blackhawk Corsairs. And I suppose a lot of the enemy cavalry is starting to get a little bit beat up here. Lizardmen are such a stubborn faction. Them and the Dwarves really do go at it. Red-Crested Skink Chief's War Crest has been popped. He's doing a pretty decent job. He was attempting to hunt down some more of the elite targets to buy time for the Saurus to chew through the rest of my opponent's build. Supreme Sorceress is very low, 630 health, and that Skink Chief is on a mission. Bounding across the battlefield, loading up a dart, and is going to be trying to poke her down from range. But there's a lot of angry Cold One Knights nearby, so he's going to be falling back as well, waiting for his opportunity to strike. Cold One Spear Riders have now finally been activated, going to be driving forward on to the Blackhawk Corsairs, trying to rescue as many units as possible, but a well-placed enfeebling foe and a counter charge from the Cold One Knights that I try to avoid and flee from is maybe going to put these guys in a bit of a dumpster situation. Skink Chief is currently surrounded by Cold One Dread Knights, but their leadership may start to falter if we can get some more troops over here to help support. We've managed to form a pocket of strength in the distance. Just a ton of Saurus Warriors and Skinks clawing their way through, biting, ripping, and tearing apart the Cold One Dread Knights, who will eventually go down to that good weapon strength. Red-Crested Skink Chief as well, doing a pretty decent job. There are some Dark Elf forces coming back, which worries me a little bit here. The Skink Chief is consistently firing into these Cold One Dread Knights, poisoning them and just lowering their stats. Looks like our cavalry did manage to just about escape the clutches of the Cold One Knights. They can now come back into the main battle line that they no longer have enfeebling foe popped on them, and they're pretty fresh, so they should do a good job. We managed to drag down these Cold One Dread Knights, and we are scrapping this game here. Red-Crested Skink is going to be hopping on top of the Blackhawk Corsairs, but now his eyes on that Supreme Sorceress prize. Handbow's going to be unleashing a few shots. I think they should be definitely kiting here rather than engaging, but I understand also trying to pin in my troops to save the Supreme Sorceress. And there's a load more handbows who can rain in fire from the rear. They've used about half the ammunition. Still plenty of kiting potential left on those guys, though we have the Skink Chief who can kite back as well. And he is a bucket ton of ammunition as a whole. We patiently wait here for the Cold One Knights to catch up. Then we drop a Flock of Doom on them, catching all of these units in one go, which is really nice for us. Saurus Warriors barely hanging on by a thread, likewise the Skink Priest. The Red-Crested Skink having to pop Cold-Blooded on himself to keep him in the action, but with War Crest active, he's managing to bite back pretty hard, and the cavalry has finally arrived. And Enfeebling Foe goes down, but I do not care this time. We have to push and drive back our opponent. 2 melee attack, 2 melee defense isn't great, but with the Skink cohort for support, and the Cold One Knights are very beat up from my opponent. The Red-Crested Skink Chief manages to escape this dangerous situation. All of our forces break as the Cold One Knights clatter into our flank, but we manage to pop Cold-Blood to keep us nice and healthy and fall back over to this right-hand side, trying to get behind the rejuvenated Cold One Spear Riders, who are now going to start running rampage over the Blackhawk Corsairs, and this is a perfect target for them. We're going to be able to run them over rather effectively, and all of a sudden the game does switch on its head once more. Blackhawk Corsairs dart in to try and save their friends alongside the Cold One Dread Knights. Yet another Withering this time instead of Enfeebling Foe goes down these Cold One Spear Riders, who have had all the debuffs thrown at them, but a well-placed Flock of Doom, it would seem, goes down, catching a lot of these troops, doing some good damage. Supreme Sorceress is still alive, but we do have the Red Crested Skink Chief on the prowl, hunting her down. Arcane Conduit has been popped on her to try and get 1 or 2 more spells. A Pendulum coming down here could be pivotal. Luckily for us, we still have that Skink Chief alive, and he's actually going to be focusing down the Supreme Sorceress, allowing the Red Crested Skink to catch her, and a little look at him cheering for victory. And it will be a pick victory for the forces of the Lizardmen. Very close game, well played to Mitch, and I think he certainly could have won it as well with 1 or 2 changes, playing a more kite-centric style of play with those hand bows, ensuring he got the more value out of them. I think would have seen me dead, but that's not the story that happened, and that's not how history shall remember it. It will be yet another victory for the Lizardmen up against the forces of the Dark Elves. Well played though, that was super close, and it really did come down to the fact we got rid of the War Hydra immediately, got that off the field, and Saurus Warriors just grinding some of the best infantry in the game, I think, for their cost. They do a real solid job throughout, and I really do have a special place in my heart for the might of the Saurus Warrior. So, what did you guys think? We will go through the damage value and damage dealt in just a second, but if you guys enjoyed, make sure to comment down below. What was your favourite moment? Who was your MVP? What factions would you like to see in the future? Make sure to leave a big fat thumbs up as well. It really does help push out the video to more people, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you think you've subscribed, sometimes YouTube does trick your mind a little bit, and you actually haven't, so make sure to double check that. There are links in the description, and you can find links to my Patreon, where you can support the channel, Nexus, where again you can buy games, including all the Total War Warhammer games, and support the channel as well. Links to my Discord, where you can submit replays, get involved in the tournament scene, keep up to date with the channel, and improve and hone your skills. So, how did the armies do? Well, the Red Crested Skink Chief, he took a lot of damage. Took a bit of a pounding. He was pretty cheap and still managed to come back with 755 damage value. Not too shabby. Skink Priest the Beast did some quite nice Flock of Dooms, but those Manticore summons really helped pay off. Applied a ton of pressure to the Supreme Sorceress and has pushed that balance power in our favour as hardcore as possible. The little Skink Chief who dreamed only cost 350 gold, managed to make back 577, still with ammo to spare, so he certainly would have, pushed up, I think, to that 800 damage value, I think, if he managed to, the game went on a bit longer. The poor little Skink cohorts kind of got obliterated, but that is the job of Skink cohorts when there's no Dark Shards and other such units to push into on the back line. Saurus Warriors 576, 1,148. This unit was the one, of course, engaged with those Cold One Dread Knights for a long time. Saurus Warriors across the board got pretty decent value. I mean, not crazy. 688, 671, 700, 474, 1,053. But all round just pushed and enveloped the enemy and dragged down those more elite warriors through sheer weight of number. Double Cold One Riders, the backup unit, only getting 217... Oh no, this was the unit, I think. That was the backup, most likely. 567 damage value, not crazy good. The other unit really overextended on that right-hand side. Some big mistakes from us this game, but at the same time, some really lovely plays, with the Umbral Tide getting 1.8k damage value, slaughtering that Hydra and driving it away. Good play by Mitch, though, to recover from that early loss. Hydra only got 240 damage value, but despite that, certainly could have won it. Cold One Dread Knights, 925, 1,200 damage value respectively, and all the cavalry performed really well. 1.8k, 1.6k, 800. Really nice work by them. And the crossbows across the board did pretty decent damage themselves. 800 damage value, 800, 900, 969, 800. Good work, 851 as well from the Supreme Sorceress. So, across the board, all of his units, apart from the Hydra, performing really well, but just getting ground down. Sheer battle of attrition from the Saurus. They're the masters of attrition, and that ended up being what kind of won us the game. So anyway, guys, until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.